So the more and more I surround myself with entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business, and the more and more I start to see a pattern. They focus so much attention on the front end of social media with posting content, randomly throwing in some hashtags, attempting to get views on all of their reels. But at the end of the day, after they put in so much effort, their frustration always comes back to one thing and one thing only: lack of leads through social media. As business owners, to grow, you need more eyeballs, but you also need those eyeballs to turn into leads. And honestly, generating leads is probably the worst kept secret of social media marketing. If you want to grow your client base and grow quickly, you can't just focus on posting on social media. You need to be proactive with your marketing strategy. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to take a risk and really fish for your potential clients. You can't just sit there and wait for them to come and find you. Well, yeah, you can do that, and this might work really slowly for you, but what I can tell you for certain is that it's not going to work long, and it definitely will not work fast. Having a reactive strategy to find clients isn't sustainable at all. And if all you do is post about your business on Instagram and Facebook and wait for your clients to find you, what you're doing is working with a reactive strategy. So what actually works? What's this proactive strategy that I'm talking about? It's a strategy that encourages actually finding clients. And not just finding them, but cultivating them to be long-term clients. That's what lead generation is. There are a few ways to generate leads online, and I usually talk a lot about lead magnets, but in today's episode, I want to get super specific on the type of lead magnet that works incredibly well to help your business grow and flourish. And that's making use of online webinars. Let me tell you that webinars are a fantastic way to generate leads and turn those leads into paying clients. I use them a lot for myself, but also for my clients. For myself, the main way that I use them is that when I am selling my online programs. For myself and for my clients, I've used them for online courses, one-on-one coaching, and honestly, I actually use them right now a lot with mortgage agents who are also looking to generate one-on-one clients. And I'll admit, they work almost like a dream, and they are so flexible. You can use a webinar to teach a topic, a strategy, or a theory, but there are a few things that you need to know about running webinars for lead generation. It's not just a magic thing that will work every single time. What you need to know is really what you are doing on the webinar, how to set it up, and even how to start attracting people to sign up for the webinar. I'm going to break it all down for you today. So in my experience, what really makes a good webinar great is actually the webinar topic. This also will have a drastic impact on the quality of leads that you generate for the webinar. The key with webinars is that the topic is actually helping them solve a problem or showing them that it's possible to have some specific transformation that they are looking for. You're not showing them the how, you're actually just showing them the vision, the overall general idea. With a webinar, you have to remember that people aren't looking to become an expert and learn everything from you. They're not coming for a class necessarily. They are looking for a solution, for information, for guidance on that problem or transformation. A lot of people make the mistake of giving away too much information and actually showing people the how, which really, at the end of the day, makes them no longer need you, and they don't earn an income from that webinar. So if you are thinking of doing webinars for your business, my biggest piece of advice is you don't want to make the mistake of really digging in so deep into a topic and giving away everything that you know. I know, you'll start fighting with yourself thinking that the more that you put into your webinar, the more that it actually shows that you're an expert. Yes, this is important to do, but you can do that without giving away everything so that those people no longer need your product or your service. As I said, with webinars, the key really is to help them solve a problem, build a relationship, and show them what is possible in a way that they actually want to work with you even more. It's really like an appetizer to a great meal. You are showing that high level of what they can get, but if they want the full course, they need to work with you personally. So step number 1 is determining the right topic for your webinar that actually solves a problem or shows a transformation is actually possible. The next step is figuring out what to actually include within your webinar, which honestly can be a whole episode on its own. The key is to give a quick win and then teach them the overall theory and vision without necessarily showing them how to actually do it. Once you have the information put together with your presentation, the next step is figuring out where do you actually host this webinar. Meaning, where do you actually do the webinar for your attendees? So this will depend on what program that you have access to and if you want to do your webinars live or on demand. On demand meaning that it's a replay of a past webinar or a pre-recorded one that people can get instant access to. Typically in the beginning, I suggest doing live webinars until you have a very, very high converting webinar. Once you have this high converting webinar, then you can turn it on demand. But it will also really come down to your price point of your offer. The price point will also reflect the length of your webinar. For this example, let's just say that you are doing live webinars, okay? There are a few different programs that you really could use to do your live webinars on. The top ones that you see people using and I use myself and with my clients is EverWebinar, Demio, and Zoom. Now, these aren't the only options though. There are a lot of options for webinar programs out there that you could use. I have started looking into a program called 10X as well. Haven't used it yet, but I'm looking into it. But for now, let's just talk about these main three. EverWebinar is really a more advanced program. It is fantastic for live webinars, but it's even better for evergreen webinars, which is where people can choose a date and time to join the webinar, but it's not actually a live webinar. Those who attend, they're going to think that it's a live webinar, but it's really not. It's a replay. Demio is what I've been using over the last couple of years, and I honestly really like it. I love the simplicity of it and the different features that it offers. So for example, I always use a lot of polls within my webinar to keep my audience really engaged, but also to collect a lot of data. I also have different buttons that people can click throughout the webinar for downloads or to check out for the program, even showing videos versus slides. So you can also set up on demand in EverWebinar with this one, but they don't have as many advanced features as EverWebinar. Now Zoom is more for basic webinars, but they are getting better and better as they go. They now also do include polls, which is fantastic, but I find webinars on Demio or EverWebinar, they're just a little bit more professional. But regardless, the goal is to have a place where you can upload your slides and go live with your audience during the webinar. Once you know where you're hosting the webinar, there's really a few more steps that I would recommend with setting up the webinar to really help automate the sign-up process, encouraging the registrations to actually show up, and even follow up after the webinar to take that next step with you. These are more of the technical aspects of running webinars, but let's get into it. The first thing you're going to need is a webinar registration page. So this page is what you'll be putting on social media ads or your social media content about the webinar, promoting it. The registration page is where people who are interested in signing up for the webinar can go, they can enter their name, their email to hold their spot. AKA, this is where you're actually generating a new lead. To get people to actually sign up for the webinar, there's a couple ways that you can actually do that. So the first way is organically posting about your upcoming webinar on social media. So this will get a lot of your warm audience signed up for your webinar and is a fantastic way to grow. But you want to make sure to post often on your feeds, stories, reels, anywhere else on social media. This is free marketing. The other option, which is honestly my preferred option, and what you should be using when you're ready to scale, is through paid ads. So this is where we spend money on social media and say, hey, Facebook or Instagram, put this social media post in front of my dream client and get them to sign up for my webinar. It's a cold audience, but this is how you reach more people outside of your warm circle. Okay, so you have people registering for your webinar through your social media promotions. They are automatically signing up through your webinar registration page, so they're putting in their name and email. The next step is actually getting people to attend the webinar. So we do that through automated email sequences. So what happens is as soon as someone signs up for the webinar, they will start to get emails automatically from you encouraging them to show up to the webinar. So this is an important part because a lot of people, they register for things because they're excited at the moment. But they may not feel it's as important when the actual time comes. You need to remind them why they signed up in the first place. So let's say that they showed up live, they listened to your webinar, The next step is actually converting them into clients or program sales, let's say. So typically at the end of your webinar, you'll do a quick little pitch for what you want them to do next. But not every single person is going to jump on the opportunity right away. The webinar itself, it's not a sales pitch. But remember, you are showing the possibility. Your offer at the end is helping them with the how. How do they actually achieve that goal? So for those who don't jump on it right away, you'll want to have emails going out after the webinar to follow up with those attendees. After the webinar, it's really your time to start taking them down that sales funnel. The goal for your follow-up email sequence is really to encourage them to take that next step with you in your business. This next step may be to purchase something like your course, to book an appointment with you, to talk to you about becoming a client. If you make sure that you are attracting the right people to sign up for the webinar through your posts and through your social media ads, making sure that they actually show up to the webinar, delivering a killer webinar, and then following up with them, you'll be able to turn those attendees into clients with only showing up to your webinar and doing what you love to do. Now, before we end today's episode, let me walk you through 2 specific examples that I use webinars for quite a lot. So as I mentioned, I personally use them when the registration for the Spotlight Theory coaching program is open, or for the social media automation bootcamp program. The Spotlight Theory program, so these ones are always live webinars because of the price point of the program. The social media automation bootcamp, this one's on demand, meaning people can get access to it all the time. So here's exactly how I run them. Here's exactly how I do it. People register for the free webinar online. I reach out to them using a bunch of social media channels. I mention it on my Facebook page, my Instagram page, my LinkedIn page, in my Facebook groups, my YouTube channel, on my podcast. I also run paid advertising to reach even more people outside of my current circle. I do recommend using both methods to really pick things up a notch. When people get on the webinar, I talk for about 45 minutes teaching them the basics and generally passing across the idea of what is actually inside of my online programs. I make sure I cover the value proposition and understand what they stand to gain by purchasing the program. And in the same vein, I make sure I don't give out too much of my information of the how. I mean, no one will pay for my online program if I tell them exactly how to do it on the webinar, right? Then, at the end of my webinar, I host live question and answer sessions to answer whatever questions they have. So it's this session that really seals the deal because it does 2 things for me. First, it grants legitimacy for me. I mean, what's a better way to show transparency than allowing people to ask you questions live about what you're actually selling? And the second thing that it helps you do is really just display your expert knowledge. If you are asked tough and technical questions and you can actually give good answers, people will leave the webinar thinking, oh, she knows what she's talking about. There will be absolutely no doubt in their mind that you are the right person to learn whatever it is that you are teaching them. And once they can leave the webinar, they're actually aware of you. They're aware of your expert knowledge. And you've actually convinced them that buying would be honestly the best thing for them. Now remember, people who attend this webinar, they're interested in what you are doing in the first place or they wouldn't have shown up live. So if these people interested in your product are convinced that you know what you're doing, how easy do you think it's going to be for you to sell to them? Let me tell you, it's going to be super easy and comes super naturally when you give a really good webinar. Or another great example for you is getting people to book appointments with you versus program sales. So let's use a mortgage agent example of one of my clients. So she specifically focuses on helping local people build wealth through real estate, which requires a lot of education and really shifting their mindset. So a webinar is a perfect way to do that. So what we do is once a month, she does a live webinar teaching about her expertise and her knowledge of how they can actually build wealth by leveraging their biggest asset, aka their home. So we run paid ads to get new people signed up for her webinar, but we also send out emails to her warm email list to get free signups. We have a customized registration page set up for them to register automatically. Once they register, they get automatic emails from her giving tips and tricks right off the bat. So we ensure that they actually show up live with reminders, and then she does her thing. However, at the end of the webinar, Instead of selling an online program, she chats about how every person's situation is going to be unique to them, and she offers a free coaching call. They get access to her personal calendar, and then they book an appointment to actually talk to her about their situation. The follow-up emails after the webinar, they're all focused on continuing to shift their mindset and encouraging them to book an appointment when they are actually ready. On the call, that's when she is building a relationship and actually turning them into clients. Now, honestly, with webinars, the possibilities are limitless. Like, you can do whatever you want. It comes down to knowing your audience, helping them solve a problem, and then helping them take that next step within your business. Doing them live, honestly, they're truly, truly fun when you actually have the right audience. I love doing them. Not all industries, though, need webinars. So really ask yourself, is a webinar something that you feel would help your audience and move them closer to working with you? If so, make sure to click the link in the show notes to download my checklist for setting up the webinar. I made it super easy for you. It will make sure that you have literally covered all of your bases. And if you do need anything, I am always here to answer any questions that you have. But as always, my friend, I hope that this helped really shed some light on how you can generate leads through social media differently and automatically turning people into clients. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for hanging out with me today. I will see you next week. Bye for now.